Hey guys, Kristen back here, and in today's video we are talking about laminitis and founder. Specifically, we wanted to address a topic or a comment that somebody had left on one of our videos saying that they were the same thing and they are not.
Yeah, so we thought we would explain what they are and the structure of the horse's foot. So it can be quite confusing, and because they're often mentioned in the same sentence or in the same case studies. So I can see why somebody might think this. I mean, can't you? So essentially, there's a part of the horse's foot called the laminae. And when the laminae becomes inflamed for a variety of reasons, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there's swelling there, which can cause pain. And that pain or that swelling is laminitis. Now, founder, when you have founder, you always have laminitis, which is where the confusion comes in, because founder is the chronic condition. So founder is when the bone, which is the coffin bone inside of the horse's hoof, starts to rotate due to the inflammation of the laminae from laminitis. But you can have laminitis without founder, but you cannot have founder without laminitis. And this is where early detection of laminitis comes into play, because you can stop the founder from happening and
getting worse or whatever it's at, but you can't change founder.
No, you can't. I mean,
you can't undo it.
You can't undo it. Shoeing can help. Mm-hmm. Pain medications.
You can manage it. You can stop it from getting worse. There's different things you can do, but you can't undo whatever has already been done if there's been founder.
Yeah. Yeah, so some things that can cause laminitis, if we were to go over it, is, being overweight, right? That's basically, if you want to think about it, like diabetes in horses for the layman's term, being overweight, high sugar diets, pain can cause laminitis, high fevers can cause laminitis. Can you think of anything else? Stress.
The stress, and then hard ground.
Yeah, hard ground.
Or uneven.
Yes.
It can potentially, because it just, their hooves can flex a little bit, but not always, and it depends on if they have shoes or not.
Yeah. I was going to say poor shoeing. And basically anything that can cause inflammation in the horse's feet. The laminae are very, very, very sensitive structures. So, one of the ways that you can kind of detect laminitis is the lameness. Okay, subtle lameness. If you can feel for heat in the horse's feet, right? So I suggest all of you guys get a good feeling when you pull your horse out, feel their hooves. Really get to know kind of what their feet feel like. Not before exercise, not after exercise, because the blood will get pumping and it will change. And determine, is there a difference in temperature between the feet? In my experience, most of laminitis occurs in the front feet, because that's where it takes most of the pressure, right? We say between like 60 and 70% of the pressure is on the front feet. So you do see it there more frequently. Yeah. There is also the traditional Laminitic stance, where the horse is standing like this on their heels.
Get the pressure off their toe, and as much pressure as they can off those front feet.
Right.
Sometimes some horses will lay down a little bit more often to get the pressure off their feet.
They'll try to find softer ground. You might notice that they aren't moving around as much. Other causes of it are things like Cushing syndrome or other metabolic syndrome. If you see laminitis or any hint of it, call your veterinarian immediately. because early detection and early prevention can stop founder. If you see any sort of metabolic syndrome in your horse, whether it's like Cushing's with long hair and peeing frequently, call your vet. Get blood work done. These things prevent founder. They prevent the laminitis. Some things that your vet might recommend, right? We're not veterinarians, is if laminitis has started, is icing. Get that inflammation down. They could prescribe Bute or Previcox. They could tell you to put easy boots on your horse's feet, right? Lots and lots of shavings, if that's an option, right? Get your horse off of the hard ground, get them comfortable. Easy things to do ahead of time that I don't really think hurt before your vet comes out. Let's say your vet can't come out right away, are the shavings and ice. I'm not going to tell you to make any sort of drug treatments because I'm not a veterinarian, right? But of course,
you don't know your horse.
Yeah, of course, you can call your vet and ask, can I do these things ahead of time, right? I mean, we've got this fantastic thing called technology. You can take a video and send it to them. Most of them will be okay with that.
And a lot of times we will.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what I've got going on, right? Take your horse's temperature, right? If they're running a high temperature, we know that can cause laminitis too. Let's say that they have an abscess on one leg, they can get laminitis on the other foot.
They shift their weight over, it puts in more stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go back to one of the things we said for like hard ground or uneven ground. It's not that they can't ever be on harder ground, but it is dependent on what they're doing, what's happening on the hard or uneven ground. Like here in the wintertime, we get frozen solid grounds.
Mm-hmm.
The pastures are uneven. So most of our horses are generally pretty smart sometimes. And they don't run around like hooligans, but they can, and it can be. But it's one of those things where, okay, if they're running around all of the time, yeah, you're going to have more risks of all kinds of different problems, not just laminitis, but other injuries and everything else if they're being silly. And just like anything, any horse can have some higher risk of injuring themselves because they're horses. But if you are on hard surface riding your horse or different things and you're galloping them down the street or trotting for a very long time and they don't have some sort of foot protection or cushion or whatever, that is that stress that then can cause the laminate to flare up and cause problems. So you can cause bruising that later causes the stress and the inflammation. You get stone bruises. They pick up a stone and you don't know it or whatever, and they get a stone bruise, or again, it goes into the abscesses. There's a variety of things that go into it. So it's not that it has to be the softest footing all of the time when you're riding or whatever else, but it's just something to be aware of how are you riding or working the horse in the footing or on the ground if it's not the best.
Yeah, where are you at in the seasonality, right?
Right. If you're going on long rides, I know a lot of people, I did. I started a client's horse formerly years ago out on the trail because we just didn't have a setup of, to not be on the trail. And I was comfortable enough with him and I knew him enough that I wasn't worried about him doing anything that, would cause harm to me. But we went on the trail. But to get to some of the trail places and everything else, we had to go on the road. And I did trot him a little bit and a little bit of canter up and down the road, but it was very quick because he was barefoot.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and when I'm saying road, I mean your asphalt driving roads. Not your dirt roads, but I mean your asphalt roads. The dirt roads can also be a factor in the hardness, but asphalt, especially if you're riding on that, doing different things, keep it minimal of your speeds.
Yeah. And there are also several times a year that we see more laminitis out here, which are spring and fall. That has to do with the horse's hormones and the way the grass comes in. So one of the things we've noticed here this year is that we went from like winter to summer fast, and our grass grew really fast. When the grass is growing fast in your pasture, okay, it is dumping a lot of sugar into it, an absolute lot of sugar. The same thing happens in the fall when the grass is going into dormancy. So one of the things that we do here to try to prevent laminitis is when we're first putting horses out on the grass, we do it for shorter intervals of time. And so that the horse's body can start to adjust to the grass as it's coming in. Because if you just put them out for hours and they haven't been out on it, you're going to get a sugar dump. And it's going to be, it could potentially be a problem.
It can cause colic, laminitis, founder, all kinds of things.
Yeah. And you have to remember too, because I hear this all the time. Well, my horse was fine last year on it and the time before that. But I'm going to tell you something with metabolic syndrome. Like Cushing's, right? That's a tumor on the pituitary gland. You never know at what point that tumor could have developed. Mm-hmm. I have a horse right now that I suspicion has Cushing syndrome. I have the vet coming out to draw blood. I've had her for many years. She's never not shed out before the way she is not shedding out now. And so for her, I have a very careful, watchful eye on her feet and how she's moving, her personality, because they can appear dumpy. And I am on top of it. And I already have a contingency place if I need to move her off of the pasture immediately to put her in. I'm trying not to do that because I love pasture for horses. We'll do a whole topic on that. And I love for them to be able to move, especially when they're older. But this is not something you ignore. Mm-hmm. You don't ignore laminitis. You don't ignore the potential for it, even if your horse has never had it. You never know when it's coming, and you need to be aware of the signs.
And one final thought and everything is because with all this, we know that horses, they have, their forelimbs are super important. They can't survive or function properly with, any missing limbs. The other thing is founder can kill your horse.
Yeah.
That's why it's super important to be watchful of all these things, because if your horse starts to founder, yes, you can stop it. You can't change it. But if it gets bad enough,
that's it.
That's it for your horse. There's nothing you can do besides give it dignified and
yeah. It's not fun. It's not something you want to go through. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, and let us know your thoughts. And until next time.